Alright, time for another dryphysics.com, debatephysics.com, but they just won't debate anything. Okay, it just doesn't matter. Polite, rude, it doesn't matter. Any context, they just won't answer simple questions, and they won't argue all the experiments, the theoretical ones and the actual ones. They'll insist, okay, that it takes 100 times the energy to spin a motor 10 times as fast, yet no evidence. They won't even show you a car crash. Does a car going twice the speed create 4 times the damage? Well, the evidence is where there are car crashes is that doesn't happen. But they don't care. Okay, just couldn't care less. And so I think I'll just play this little clip from Professor Lewin. We're on the subject of energy this time. I mean, the most important subject in physics. You really can't associate physics with any other concept more than energy, and they haven't got one word of it right. Not even the slightest clue of the right conceptual description.
It has no choice. Nature can deal with kinetic energy one way or another, but it cannot finagle momentum. So it must give.
All right, so here's a simple example. All right, before we get to the silliness, yeah. So you can have a lever, and you put the same force in, and the lever moves exactly the same. So I put a 2 mass at this location, or I can put a 1 mass at this location. Everything will move exactly the same. Same force, the lever moves exactly the same. Nothing changes for this straight line here. In both cases, it'll move exactly the same. The force is exactly the same. And yet their contention is, they say it's an absolute fact that this, when I put the small object out here, I'll get twice the energy. Now, obviously, it doesn't make any sense. You could say that if I put the big object here, I get half the energy. I lose half the energy. Somehow I lose half the energy if I put this object here, right? Or somehow I get free energy if I put it out here. I mean, it's just too silly, okay? It doesn't make any sense. These two things weigh the same. If I was to if I was to blindfold you and you couldn't see what was on this side, you couldn't tell by pushing over there. You're not going to be able to tell which one I have on here, whether I have a 1 mass here or 2 mass here. The same exact force moves them. Okay, and this one happens to move at twice the velocity. And because they square the velocity, it ends up being 4 times the energy, when it's not. Okay, well, twice the energy in this case. So that's what's at dispute. They can't do these simple drawings. They can't do any experiment. So I'm going to read the Wikipedia page, and it's going to demonstrate that they have no experimental evidence, 0, okay, and it's all just talk. It's all just they say so, and that's all they have, is they say so. No facts, no evidence, nothing. All right, so there's the Wikipedia page. And it's just going to be nonsense, just words, nothing that you could turn into a fact. All right, that should still be visible, right? I can't trust this thing, so I have to put it somewhere where I can read it, because I can't trust it. Yeah, all right. Things disappear without my consent. All right, anyway. All right, so from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. So I don't know why that's there. This article, so they put this in italics, is about scalar physical quantity. It's about the scalar physical quantity. So again, the very fact that they would start the article with a concept that somebody would say, what's a scale? What do you mean scalar physical quantity? What the hell is a scalar physical quantity? So the truth is they're saying that this elemental thing called energy doesn't have a direction. That action in the universe, when you see something move, or there's an action, that the action doesn't have a direction. That's their theory. That somehow the mechanism causing the action isn't directional, when, of course, every single action has a direction. Okay, for an overview of the topical guide to energy, whatever that could, what is that? What is this mush? It's the word energy. You're supposed to tell us what energy is. What is this mush? So see outline of energy. So that ought to be funny, right? So we'll go do that one too. For other uses, this is about using something. I thought it was about information. I thought it was supposed to have something to do with you going to tell me the truth about what the evidence demonstrates. You're going to describe the courtroom, and you're going to describe the evidence, and you're going to tell me what's happening in reality, what the science is doing. All right. See energy disambiguation. I don't know why they do this. Why do they think this is at all? Title relates to more than one page. Why? Okay. And then so energetic is somehow a different page, I guess, redirects here. So this is the energetic page. So I don't know. What other words are we supposed to use? For other uses, again, see energetic disambiguation. So yeah, what does all this mush mean? I mean, these editors think this is somehow a coherent statement. This statement is supposed to be coherent. So if I put this out in the, I went out in public with a sign with this shit written on it, that somehow people would know what the fuck any of that meant. I mean, it's just so stupid. Okay, they can't even do that part right. I mean, they can't even rationally describe a concept, a scientific concept, and a concept, again, that's the core of physics. You can't get more, the two words can't be more synonymous, energy and physics. Because all of physics is about, the mechanical events of the universe, and all those events include energy. You can't have an action, you can't have an event without energy being involved. So we'll see how long it takes to get to the word momentum in here, right? Because obviously I'm going to argue what they should say is synonym momentum, okay? Because it's just the plain truth. The plain truth is there's no other form of energy than an object, a thing, okay? Whatever you want to call it, a perturbation, an ether particle, a piece of ether. It doesn't matter I don't care what you think, okay, is moving in the universe, but frankly, that's what it is. That's what energy is stuff moving in the universe. And the only thing that matters is how much does it weigh and how fast is it moving. The end. You're all done doing physics. Yeah, it's really simple after all. And these evil, stupid, retarded fuckers won't even allow you to talk about it. All right. In physics, whatever the hell that is, they mean in the group of 64 people that have decided what we all have to believe. So the group of 64 people that will tell us all what we must believe, okay, energy to them, okay, from the ancient Greek blah blah activity. So that even makes sense, right? Oh, okay. So let's understand, the word wasn't invented until 1842 or something, okay? So they didn't have the word energy. And Newton and Descartes used the term quantity of motion. All right, is a quantitative property, okay, that is transferred to a body or to a physical system, okay, recognizable in the performance of work. So if it doesn't do work, you can't say it's energy, apparently, right? Is that what it's saying? Wait, I don't know. Performance of work and in the form of, so the work is in the form of heat and light. So even this is just such mush. This whole idea that the energy is in any other forms. The fact is they could say, well, you can have big things moving or you can have little things moving. When little things move, it's like light and heat. They're really tiny and you can't see them, and they're very subtle. Okay, but when big things move, yeah, it's really obvious. Okay, you can see the big thing move, and you can say, well, that's the same as. Okay, the big thing moving is the same as a bunch of that little stuff moving, and all I have to do is figure out the weight difference. Okay, You know, and so there's not even anything here. It says that is transferred. So it's a quantitative property that is transferred. Well, they haven't even described any kind of notion of the fact that there would be something called force, that would be the energy, and then something called matter, and that would be the stuff getting the energy transferred to it. So the matter would collect the energy. That would be the rational way to describe this. All right, so leave us continue. Energy is a conserved quantity, so it's just a joke. There are 168,000 examples, yeah, of non-conservative. I just drew one on the board. It's not conservative. Okay, the ballistic pendulum. So you shoot a bullet into a ballistic pendulum. This is a big heavy thing to see how much energy the bullet has. And you conserve 99% of the momentum, but you lose 99% of the energy. Now, I mean, I could say to you, you know, this might be a complex argument for the beginning of the argument, but the fact is you can't make energy go in two places. So you can't, like, if I have 10 energies, I can't make 10 heats and 10 lights. Can't do it. I have to make like 5 lights and 5 heats. Like, I can't use energy twice. If it's going somewhere, that is, I heated something and the energy is moving somewhere else, I can't use it to do work. It's gone. It's going. We're doing work in some other place. I can't use it twice. So obviously, in the ballistic pendulum, it makes no sense to say, well, all the energy was converted into something. Well, it can't be converted into something because it's all in the motion of the ballistic pendulum. 99% of it is moving the pendulum this way. Can't possibly be going somewhere else too. I mean, it's so illogical. It's such trivial nonsense. It's so obviously wrong. It's such an obviously silly theory. These are silly words. They have nothing to do with experimental evidence or proof. It's just a nonsense argument. It's a mockery. It should be mocked. Yeah, okay. So they don't believe it's conserved. It's just idiotic. You cannot conserve. Anytime you transfer energy from a big thing to a little thing, or from a little bunch of little things to a big thing, you can't conserve both kinetic energy and momentum. Can't be done. So it's just nonsense that they care about anything called a conserved quantity. All right. So let's see what it says. Conserved. In physics, a conserved law states that a particular measurable property of the isolated system does not change as the system evolves over time. So it's just absolute. I just showed the lever, a completely different outcome. I put more energy in the system by putting the small object on the lever than I have in the system if I put the big object on the lever. Just an absolute fact. Okay. Exact conservation laws include conservation of mass energy. So what is mass energy? So again, more nonsense. It's just nonsense. Mass doesn't have energy, okay, on its own. It can collect it, but it doesn't have it, okay, until it's collected it. All right. The law of conservation of energy, so it's going to say the same thing twice, states that energy can be converted in form, but not created or destroyed. So they're just basically saying that yes, you can change the energy of a big thing into the motion of a lot of little things, but it'll be the same amount of motion, but that's momentum. So you conserve momentum. So as Professor Lewin says, yeah, of course, nature conserves momentum. But why are they talking about energy? Because they think energy is 1/2 mv squared. They don't think energy is momentum. They think energy is the little things have more energy than big things. Little things moving with the same momentum have more energy than big things with less momentum. They say the recoil of the gun has 2 joules of energy, let's say, and the bullet has 2,000. So how is that conservation? How is that consistent with Newton's third law? I mean, it's supposed to be a law that they're equal and opposite reactions. Well, if I have 2 watts of energy going this way and I have 2,000 watts of energy going that way, how the hell is that an opposite and equal reaction? Oh, obviously it's not. Oh, all right. Again, they won't allow you to question a single sentence of this bullshit, let alone argue the whole concept. All right, the law of conservation of, okay, we already did that. Can't be created or destroyed, but obviously you can destroy it. I take a 5 mass object moving with a velocity. I add 5 mass to its weight. I just pour some water inside of its pickup truck. Now I have a 10 mass moving 5. So I had a 5 going 10. Now I have a 10 going 5. They say I just lost half the energy. Just disappeared. Didn't go, there's no evidence of where it went. It just disappeared. I have exactly the same momentum. So, nature still makes sense. I mean, I didn't lose anything. I have the same momentum. But I lost half the kinetic energy, whatever the hell that is. Somehow 500, let's say if I started with 1,000 watts of energy, somehow I lost 500 of them. They just disappeared out of the universe. I mean, it is so obnoxiously dishonest for them to talk about conserving when they don't pay any attention to conservation. Any notion that what you have in the end has to equal what you started with. They couldn't care less. They'll tell you that, if you have the same explosion and you want to see how much energy your explosion has, so you put two masses on either side of the explosion, you'll get more energy out. That is more momentum. Okay, the objects will fly away with more total momentum the heavier the object is you put in front of the explosion. Now, they don't have any real evidence for that, but they'll just tell you that's the way it is. It's just too silly. All right, the unit of measurement for energy is the International System of Units. SI is the joule. So it says right over here, okay, that SI unit is the joule, but all the other units, so they have about 1,000 other ways to measure energy. And so they list a couple here. So you have the kilowatt, okay, so the watt is the same as the joule. The BTU is the same as the joule. The calorie is the same as the joule. The electron volt is the same as joule. The erg is the same as the joule. The foot-pound can be converted directly into the joule also. And, horsepower, all of this kind of stuff, all of it can be converted into joule equivalencies. All right. So, but why do they have all of that nonsense? Well, it's because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay, that's why. All right. What are they talking about? Living organisms here. Hilarious. In the 3rd paragraph. All right. Common forms of energy include kinetic energy. So what does this even mean? Kinetic energy is the broadest category. There's no other way they use the word energy. So that's just absolute nonsense. They think heat is kinetic energy. They think everything is kinetic energy. They don't call it anything else. It's all a form of kinetic energy. So why are they doing that? Why include the kinetic energy? I mean, it's just... All right. Of moving objects, the potential energy stored by an object. So they're saying that kinetic energy, that when the energy is in the form of potential, that somehow it doesn't have any kinetic energy. So if you have a boat next to a stream, right, so the stream is rushing by, they say the boat has potential energy, when no, the boat doesn't have anything. It's sitting on the shore. It doesn't have any energy. Or they say the stream doesn't have any energy. I mean, you can't make any sense out of this rubbish. I mean, obviously the object isn't going to have energy until something acts on it. It has to give it energy. So things sitting in space somewhere in a gravitational well, they don't have any potential energy. They don't have anything. They have to be acted on by the system. It's not until the system acts on them. It's not until you put the boat in the stream that you can talk about now it's gaining energy. But it never has anything called potential energy. All right, and then things like storage devices like batteries, that's real energy. So you could almost argue that's like a flywheel spinning. Now, flywheel spinning is potential energy, right? It's spinning, and you could use it to, with belts or something else, to spin a blade, or you could do it to do lots of other things, to shoot something, to do lots of things. And cut a piece of wood, whatever. So yeah, it's got stored energy in it. And the only thing you're arguing is the storage of the energy gets smaller and smaller. So inside of a battery, it's not dead energy. It's not something called potential energy. There's a bunch of little flywheels in there. There's a bunch of springs in there. There's a bunch of devices, little tiny atomic devices that have stored the energy. But none of the storage is inactive. All of the storage is real pressure, and it has to be confined by real mechanisms. Oh, this is just so bad. Okay, anyway. Potential energy stored in an object. So again, they keep saying it's stored in the object when obviously the boat on the shore doesn't have anything stored in it, and neither does this when I lift it up in gravity. This doesn't have anything stored in it. It has no potential energy stored in it. You have to wait for gravity to act on it. And right now, gravity's acting on it because I'm having to do the work of holding it up against the gravity. So obviously it's an active force that's working here. An active force. This is a stream gravity. I can let it go and it gets pushed by the stream. This didn't have any kind of energy until the stream gave it to it. It had to push it. I don't know why I'm talking to that thing. I should be talking to this thing. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So it's just wrong, okay? The thing doesn't have any potential energy. So there's no potential energy stored in something because I lifted it up in gravity. It doesn't have any potential energy. All right. Stored in an object, for instance, due to its position in a field. So again, it is not stored in the object. It's just a silly way to say it. It's not happening. Okay, the elastic, no, I don't know why they're getting into this, energy stored in a solid object. So I'm sure the average Joe reading this is going to understand what the fuck they're saying here. The elastic energy stored in a solid object. It's almost a non sequitur to say a solid object could store elastic energy. If you get my meaning. I mean, the elastic energy is the fact that you're going to compress something and it's going to re-expand. If it's solid, it's not going to do much of that compression thing. Chemical energy associated with chemical reactions. The radiant energy carried by electromagnetic radiation, which is also a nonsense. And the internal energy contained within a thermodynamic system. Whatever the hell that is. So that's just heat. So anytime there's something that has temperature, it means that little bits are moving. And as the little bits are moving, they're going to radiate to the rest of the universe that noise of vibrating. So they're going to give the field of energy motion that is pattern. And obviously the patterns can cause events. Okay. Alright, all living organisms constantly take in and release energy. So it's a silly distinction. All things in the universe take in and reject, expel energy constantly. They're basically, unless they're a battery absorbing energy or a battery releasing energy kind of a thing, they're at equilibrium. That is, they're producing almost as much as they're consuming. And the trick is gravity is just a little differential in that. A little tiny differential in the amount of energy expelled versus the energy that went in. Oh, God, this is such garbage science. Due to mass energy equivalence. So let's read that, right? Because that's got to be a monstrous pile of gibberish. In physics, mass energy equivalence is the relationship between mass and energy in a system's rest frame. So we have to believe frames to even do this energy thing. You can't even, they're going to force you to be a relativist, to even have a conversation about energy. where two quantities differ only in a multiplicative constant and the units of measurement. A multiplicative constant. What the fuck? Who wrote this shit? Okay, the principle is described. Well, I almost want to go to that page because it's just so ridiculous, right? What the fuck is that crap? So there is no mass energy equivalence. Mass on its own doesn't have any energy. The universe does. So anything I put in the universe is going to get banged around by the fact that the universe is randomized. So there's crap hitting everything all the time. And at any one moment, I'm getting hit a little more from this direction than that direction. So I'm being forced to wobble. That's the only kind of rest energy you could have. You can't have any other kind of rest energy than the energy the universe is giving to you by forcing you to jiggle. And you could sort of understand if you're jiggling, it means that the force is doing work on you. It made you move, but it keeps making you move nowhere. And so it is using the force. You're using some force up by moving back and forth. And the fact is that inside the earth, there's a whole bunch of things moving back and forth because they're getting pushed from one side and getting pushed from the other side, and they're moving both ways constantly. And that's causing gravity. Oh, I'm supposed to talk to this camera. That's gravity. God, I just can't believe there aren't any people smart enough to understand this. That this is junk. It's mush. It's nonsense. They can't figure it out that this is nonsense what they're saying. Mass energy equivalence. It's nonsense. Okay, any object that has mass when stationary called rest mass. So that's all you have. You have matter. Your mass is your matter. It's the number of electrons and protons you have. That's your mass. Because they can't understand this energy thing is the reason why they didn't even weigh electrons and protons correctly. So they don't think electrons and protons make up your mass. Your atomic weight isn't your actual physical weight because they can't measure the mass of electrons and protons correctly because they're using the wrong formula. They don't think they're moved by momentum. They think they're moved with this squared kinetic energy bullshit. So they're way off. As far off as the 2,000 watts of the bullet versus the 2 watts of the gun recoil. Those are supposed to be equal and opposite reactions. They're supposed to be equal numbers. Now the fact is, momentum says they are completely equal. The bullet has exactly the same amount of momentum that the gun recoil has. So momentum works perfectly. But they don't use momentum to calculate the weight of an electron. Oh, it's just so ridiculous. Anyway, stationary called rest mass also has an equivalent amount of energy whose form is called rest energy. So there's no rest energy. So let's just read what that crap says. The invariant mass, rest mass, intrinsic mass, proper mass, are in the case of a bound system simply mass is the portion of the total mass of an object or system or objects that is independent of the overall motion of the system. Too ridiculous. I mean, no way you'd have to read that about 17 times before you'd be able to say, oh, that's what they're saying. And even then, you still wouldn't understand it. Okay, and any additional energy of any form acquired by the object above the rest energy will increase the object's total mass. So they think they can increase something's mass by adding energy to it. So again, a theory for which there is no good evidence. So just absolute nonsense. You don't increase its mass. I move an object at one velocity, it has a certain pressure. I move it at twice the velocity, it has twice the pressure. I move it at 3 times the velocity, it has 3 times the pressure. Newton knew this. You can't make more mass okay, by moving something. All right, so just nonsense. Okay. And this is only the fourth paragraph, right? I mean, they're already talking about this abstract Einsteinian bullshit, and they haven't even got to the fourth paragraph. All right, so where was I? Any object has mass when stationary, called rest mass, also has an equivalent amount of energy whose form is called rest energy. And any additional energy of any form acquired by the object above that rest energy will increase the object's total mass just as it increases its total energy. So again, just nonsense. Obviously, because they have this quadratic increase in energy with velocity, it creates this preposterous nonsense that somehow one atom going 1,000 miles an hour has 1,000 times the ability to change the universe than 1,000 atoms moving 1 mile an hour. And it doesn't have 1,000 times more. So I can use the bowling example. So we know every frickin' good bowler on earth is using a 16-pound bowling ball. The fact is, if they used an 8-pound bowling ball and threw it twice as fast, which seems perfectly easy to do, they're supposed to be able to knock down twice as many pins. Physics says they can knock down twice as many pins. They have twice the energy. Can any bowler make that work? No, no bowler can. They can't find any of that energy in reality. Simple fact. Again, they're never going to show you the car crash or the anything where this magical kinetic energy is demonstrated to exist. You're never going to see a car thrown at a brick wall at 50 miles an hour, and then they throw a car at 100 miles an hour, same car, and they produce 4 times the damage. It's never going to be shown to you because it doesn't frickin' happen. Alright, human civilization requires energy to function, so that's just, what a baby talk this is. Oh, brother. Your heart. I mean, everything on there's no such thing as a function, frankly, without energy. So nothing can function, not just human civilization. Nothing functions without the transfer of force, pressure. Things bumping into things, pushing. So this should really say, right, they haven't even talked about the concept of push. That energy really is pushing something. That's all it is. You just push something. That's a transfer of energy. All right. And so nothing in the universe would work if you couldn't push anything. If nothing could be pushed, then nothing would move. But everything has to be pushed. Nothing moves because it wasn't pushed. Somewhere in the Earth's history, all of it, the Earth's velocity around the sun, it got all of that velocity because something hit it and pushed it and gave it velocity. Everything has to be pushed. Human civilization, it's just so unscientific. Human civilization. Dogs couldn't walk on sidewalks without energy. Human civilization requires energy to function, which it gets from energy resources, whatever, just too silly, such as fossil fuels. So that's just chemical, right? Nuclear fuel, well, it's atomic, but you could call it chemical, or renewable energy. So more baby talk. Renewable, you're talking about the source of it, okay? So the fact is that we have convenient sources. The sun, okay, is doing a bunch of chemistry for us, and we can just, enjoy collecting it. All right, the Earth's climate and ecosystem processes are driven by energy the planet receives from the sun. And it's also receiving it in the form of the gravity problem. Okay, all kinds of torques created by gravity are heating the Earth. And so the Earth is all molten on the inside. So it's collecting a whole bunch of energy. Although a small amount also is contributed by geothermal energy. Yeah, it's a little tricky to tap it, but it's really the, technically it should be the cleanest, freest energy almost in the system. There's so much of it. I mean, hydroelectric is very nice and very good, but it's a little hard to construct. But man, the geothermal is just, but it's the whole problem of the earthquakes and all kinds of other things, and they just break all your pipes and they all corrode, and so it's a little tricky. But I mean, as an amount of energy, it's the closest, biggest source. In a way, you could argue. Well, there's no point in having that argument because obviously the nuclear energy is also a lot of it, but it's so dirty. It's that's the problem. Dirty energy. So they should just basically say here, energy's tricky because it's dirty. It produces a lot of waste when you try to convert it, because we can't do the Newton's cradle thing. We can't do some perfect transfer of energy. All our transfers between big things and little things end up creating a bunch of distribution problems, and we end up breaking pieces off, and this, that, and this, and this, and all of that makes it difficult. All right, let's see. How far shall I go? Well, one more paragraph. The total energy of a system. What the hell was this crap anyway? I didn't even pay attention to this ad in the middle of the in the middle of the thing. Forms, okay. This section needs additional citation for verification. So why are they saying this shit to the public? I mean, why is this on the public page? This should be like a note to editors. This page sucks. But why are they doing it right in the middle of the damn thing? So the subject of energy, they can't quite do it yet. They haven't figured out how to write the page on energy. One of the most fundamental subjects in physics, and they're just, we haven't quite gotten to it yet. So please help improve this article. So it's such a fucking lie. They don't want anybody to help improve the article. It's just such a lie. They're going to block you and ban you and insult you. They don't want you to touch a word on this fucking slimy page. Oh, they're such liars. Okay, adding citation to reliable sources. And again, what would that be? Any book published by somebody who's a physicist. So essentially that's all they're really saying. Just cite somebody who wrote a book who's a physicist, and that's all. That's the end of our standard. Okay, so it doesn't matter. In this section, unsourced material may be challenged and removed. Well, how come that's just such a lie? Everything you just said is unsourced in the sense that it's mush. It doesn't have anything to do with evidence. You can't show it. You can't show how that conclusion was drawn. You're not showing any of the facts. You're just saying the lawyer said. Well, what the lawyer says isn't anything, doesn't mean anything. You have to show us what's on the evidence table. Anyway, the total energy of a system can be subdivided and classified into potential energy and kinetic energy. So again, now they're using these terminology to screw everything up. So they're talking about the energy that's hidden and small, discrete, invisible, versus the energy that's active and obvious. So obviously, again, a stream would be called, the Mississippi River would be called potential energy. But isn't that a little bit ridiculous when you know every single water molecule is actively moving? It's pretty ridiculous to say, oh yeah, it's potential energy. No, it's really active kinetic energy. So you're always just transferring active energy. You're never transferring anything called inactive energy, okay? The energy is in the form of tension and pressure. There are real forces. Right now, you're being forced into the ground's pushing you back up. You're not inactive. Right now, you're very active. You are bouncing in the gravity. There's just no doubt about it. You can do the experiment yourself. You'll feel the fatigue of your ass. Well, why is your ass getting fatigued? Because it's doing a lot of work. The little pieces are all the time kind of recompensate their position. They're trying to find the right place, because there's one force pushing them into the ground and the ground's pushing them back up again. You're not in some potential state. You're in an active state. All right, so they can't even get this right. But it just confuses the subject, right? Because then they start talking about the distinction between energy we can see and energy we can't see, and that's really what potential and kinetic in that context means. What the kinetic energy is really the kinetic energy formula. It's the living force. That's what kinetic energy really is. 1/2 mv squared, the squared velocity that makes little things magically powerful and makes heavy things magically weak. Nonsense. All right, are combinations of the two in various ways. So even, that's just scary talk. Okay, combinations of active and invisible. I mean, just, well, whatever. Kinetic energy is determined by the movement of an object. So isn't that just too silly? Of course, it's got an MV in it, right? I mean, the kinetic energy theory has an MV in it, so it's obviously got momentum in it, all right? Movement, all right? But it's clearly you've added this mystical unicorn horn. You've stuck this stupid squared unicorn horn on top of it, so you've completely changed what it is. Let's see, determined by the movement of an object or the composite motion. Well, let's see what that is. In physics, statistical mechanics is a mathematical framework that applies statistical methods and probability theory to large assemblies of microscopic entities and does not assume or postulate any natural laws, but explains the microscopic behavior as unicorn fluff. So right there, they admit it. What the fuck happened there? So you can't hit anything on this page without it doing something. I cannot click. All right, so where was I? Oh yeah, so what was that, right? That was absolutely bullshit. All right, where am I? Various ways. Kinetic energy is determined by the movement of an object or the composite motion. So that's the one I just did, right? Yeah. Of the object's components. Oh, the composite motion of the object's components. That's not mushy circular reasoning at all. While potential energy, I mean, this is a silly distinction, right? We know the potential energy is just invisible. Come on, let's just get real. It's still active energy. It's just invisible. All right. While potential energy reflects the potential of an object to have motion. And they're saying in one sentence, they're basically saying it has to have this thing called potential energy, like potential energy is a substance. And now they're basically saying, well, no, it's just the idea that maybe it could be moved if the bullet hits it, it'll move. So I can put a tin can on the ground and we just say it has potential energy, because I'm shooting bullets around. And after maybe I could shoot 10,000 bullets and one of them might hit the tin can. So the tin can has potential energy because 1 in 10,000 bullets might hit that tin can. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. I mean, it's just gibberish. It's so fucking weak. All right, potential energy reflects the potential of an object to have motion, right? And the potential is what? It's just silly. It's just like the fact is the universe is going to, the sun's going to explode, the earth is going to be evaporated, all of that stuff is going to happen. So should I say it now that the earth has explosive capacity? It really doesn't. Okay, it's not going to explode until the sun, pumps a ton of energy into it. All right, generally being based upon the object's position within a field or what is stored within the field itself. So again, why are you saying it has potential energy when all you're saying is it has a position in space that's vulnerable? You could even say that it might move. If you put it in the stream, it will move. The reason why they don't do it is because they don't believe gravity is a real force. So that's why this is talked about in such a silly manner, is because they don't really think you're being pushed into the earth. They think some bizarre bent geodesical thing, some mathematical formula is bent, and that bent mathematical formula causes you to be pushed into the earth. Oh, it's just so pathetic. All right. So yeah, let's end there. Okay, so they put a picture of a lightning strike. Now that's a nice little illustration of something that you say, yeah, that's, lots of light, lots of heat, lots of stuff happening, really kind of interesting. All right, so it says here, in a typical lightning strike, 500 megajoules, So that's megawatts. So that's 1,000,000 watts of electrical potential energy. So whatever that is converted into the same amount of energy in the forms of mostly light energy, sound energy, and thermal energy. So now they really should turn that around, right, and say thermal energy. I mean, that's what it's mostly going to do, is burn the fuck out of whatever it hits. It's going to heat the ground. It's going to turn clay into glass. It's going to do lots of things. And yes, the light adds up to something. I mean, but it's probably less than 1% of the energy is in the form of light. I mean, maybe it's less than 1,000th of 1%. So, and the sound is impressive, but, it really is a small amount of the energy that is being created by the fact that the electricity is moving faster than the speed of sound, and therefore is breaking the sound barrier and creating a bunch of sonic booms. Okay, so, but this is all just such crap. This is the best the human race can do in terms of describing the most elemental, fundamental science there is, the science of motion. This is the best they can do, this drivel. And if you suggest, look, you got to fix this. This is mush. You can't do it, because what you're going to have to do is argue about what they think the real premises are. And you're going to have to go back to Isaac Newton, and you're going to have to say, well, why do you think Isaac Newton was wrong? I mean, he got a lot of right answers. Why do you think he didn't understand how energy works? I mean, he got a ton of right answers. I mean, what exactly, where is his big mistake? Okay. Oh, they're just such assholes. So again, this is an argument about them telling us that there's this 100 douchebags on this planet, and these 100 douchebags get to make up all these fantasy stories, and then these fantasy stories get written in the special gold text, engraved in stainless steel. I mean, the 100 people get to engrave their little fake fables, their little stories about how great they look and how cool they are, all their silly little stories, and they get to write them in the stainless steel. And we all have to bow to it. And we all have to pray to the silly totem pole of absolute made-up religious crap. This is just a holy ghost story. They're just telling you about how gremlins make things happen in the universe. This is not science. This isn't fact. It isn't evidenced. It's just a pile of goop. Alright. Slimy, sticky, cruddy, yucky goop. It's goop science. You can believe me now, or you can waste a whole bunch of time and believe me later. But it's going to be the truth eventually. Eventually, you're all going to have to say, oh shit, yes, I was an asshole, and I just prayed to nonsense. Okay, because now why would you do that? Why would you pray to nonsense? I mean, why would you do that? Why? Yeah, that's the hard problem for me. Why do people who can figure out not to stick a fork in their eye, so you're smart enough not to stick a fork in your eye, but you're not smart enough to figure out that this crap they write sounds like absolute made up shit. Somehow you're not able to see that. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know how you can't figure out that all this mush they're writing is mush. Okay, so anyway, till the next time where we will continue. Yeah, unfortunately. It's just so bad.